Space, I would look at space as an infrastructure, right? It's the same way that we have roads, we have bridges, we have electrical power system. We do need space. Again, we are really building and paving the way for the next generation of space solutions that can make life better for people, make it easier, make it safer.
I'm James Collins.
I'm Alec, Cranston. Matter of Facts, the podcast that tells the real stories of Halifax.
The good,
The bad.
and the Bayes Lake. The Matter of Facts podcast brings you the unsung heroes, the unsung stories, news and happenings from across our wonderful city that you maybe thought happened but didn't quite know the truth behind.
And get you all in the loop on what's going on, what's to come, and what can we be prepared for.
Happy New Year, Alec.
And Happy New Year to my esteemed co-host, Mr. James Collins.
And my esteemed co-host, Mr. Cranston.
Ah, there it is.
2026.
We are Matter of Facts. Yes, 2026. We are
Season
here.
4.
Season 4.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're still doing this.
We're still going hard.
Holy shit.
I love it. Oh, fuck.
Oh, yes. We, as part of season 4, we had a little editorial discussion, and we said as long as it isn't every other word, we may
slip one in.
If that's what you want to call it, and also allow some light profanity.
Ah, yes, that as well. So you know what? It's good for conversational flow and what we're truly feeling. So I got no qualms with that.
Well, let's get season 4, episode 1 off to a rocketing start. Do you see what I did there?
Oh my gosh! Wow, my brain is just in outer space right now.
Insane is the crane. Insane is the crane. Insane is the crane. Kinda insane like the crane. Insane is the crane. Insane is the crane.
For everything that goes on in Halifax, it's not been a wildly insane month, but one of the more surprising things that happened was everybody had bellies full of turkey. It was the 27th of December. It wasn't the night before Christmas, it was 2 days after Christmas, and then suddenly this thing pops up. Just to let everybody know that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy is dropping into Halifax today. Did you remember when you first heard about this? Like, people online, there were some rumblings that he's en route to Halifax.
I don't even. I remember it was like the day of where I actually heard about.
Well, that's deliberate because they never announced the movements ahead of time, right?
And the way they worded it was so funny. It was like he was stopping in on his way to, where was he going?
He was going down
Australia
to
or something.
No, he was even worse. He was going down to Florida.
Oh,
to meet the person who needs no introduction.
Yes, the orange. Okay. Well, yeah, and I saw that. I wonder where they met. They probably met where?
Well, they met at the airport. So this is supposedly what happened. It was a Saturday. On Boxing Day, they had a telephone call, Carney and Zelensky, prior to him going to Mar-a-Lago. And Carney said to Zelensky, hey, why don't you stop through? Because, you're kind of passing over Nova Scotia. Why don't you stop through and we'll have this meeting and, shake some hands and make it look good to the media. I mean, if we're honest, Carney did this to look good, right? This wasn't anything to do with diplomatic relations. And of course, Zelensky was going down to try to come up with this. Well, ended up with a 20-point plan to not probably end the Ukraine war.
Yes.
But it was kind of odd that he just sort of dropped in. And it reminds me of like when you would be going somewhere as a kid and your aunt who was en route would find out that you were driving by. And she'd be like, do make sure you call through for a cup of tea on the way.
I've done many of those.
And it's like, we're going to see Uncle Johnny, but we got to see Aunt Betty on the way there for lunch. Like, she won't let us drive by her house without giving us lunch. Carney's like, hey, you're not going to Florida without stopping in to see us.
No, come say hi. Come say hi at the airport.
Yeah, they sat at the Tim's just after security.
I was going to say, what do they have to eat? Some Tim's?
I'd have a double, and more money, please, because we did give $2.5 billion. That was an expensive meeting for Canada, but for the right reasons.
Wrote the check right then and there. It was amazing. Very cool. It's just cool stuff to like. I always get. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Not starstruck. I don't get star, but it's just cool. Like we're going about our day here, whatever the hell we're doing, and meanwhile up at the airport, two of the most prominent right now in the world leaders are just having a conversation and meeting because they just happen to be crossing paths. Like, it's cool. It's just fun to see, like, because it's definitely not casual. I wouldn't call it casual, but just the way it worked out. It wasn't like this big grand event or a grand thing that the man to the south would probably do. It's just a very Canadian way of saying, hey, let's meet up and have a chat, have a coffee, and then you keep going down to Florida and talk to the other guy.
Here's a ceremonial hockey stick for you to take.
Yeah, there you go.
Please kick Trump in the balls while you're down there
Yeah,
as well.
from me.
From me.
Yeah.
Tell him that old Marky Mark.
Oh, Marky Mark.
This is a knee in the nuts from Marky Mark. I think this would never have got out to the public years ago. They would have released it afterwards, but my brother worked quite closely with the UK government years ago in London, and there was a lot of him following the Prime Minister around, and it was really frustrating because they don't announce the Prime Minister's movements even to the inner circle staff until the day of. So he'd often be told, you need to be on this railway station at this time, and he'd go. And then you get a text saying you're going on this train to this place and Gordon Brown is going to be there. They don't ever leak the movements of world leaders ahead of time. So it's very natural that people didn't know, and this thing was planned the day before, had people not been tracking on the internet. So he used a privately chartered civilian, I think it was an A320 from a Ukraine airline. If people weren't able to track that, we probably would not have known until it happened. No. But it was still very low-key. You know, it was very... intentional that he didn't leave the airport and he walked into a hangar and had a meeting in a boardroom and then left again. But I think it just kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, very cool.
What a guy though. What a guy he is.
What a guy. Very Canadian, very Canadian situation, and it went off without a hitch. So very cool. Insane.
What's the biggest missed opportunity though? That he is not sat in the middle.
He's not right here.
Imagine
if we got him on
at the
podcast.
matter of facts table.
Imagine if he was just like, yeah, no, I'll come do that.
He's one of those dudes you want to hug, and you know what he'd be wearing? He'd be wearing that green top he wears. Just to be like, you're awesome.
Imagine, I would just advertise the podcast with no advertising. We just launch it one day, and it's just Zelenskyy. It's just, here's our guest today.
We'd be pretty
He was
popular.
stopping in, and also Mr. Carney's in the room. We don't have room for him. We can't get. He's out there watching though. He's gonna take pictures for us.
Yeah, Mark, you can stay out there. We're talking to Zelenskyy here. We'll do you in a few weeks.
We'll get,
with all of I've always said for a world leader, Carney's got to sort his posture out. Someone straighten that dude's back. I mean, he was head of governor of the Bank of England. He's rolling in cash. Surely he can afford 30 minutes with a chiropractor.
You would think. But we'll get him on one day. He seems like a guy that would be open to that if he was here for like a few days and like somehow we got through to him. Now our way through to him would probably be like through Mike Savage or something because
we got contacts there.
Yeah, we can pull that one off.
Yeah,
we'll go through.
Call Sea-Dog up.
We'll go through Connor.
Yeah, call Sea-Dog up. Hey,
thanks, buddy.
Do you want to exploit everything your family stands for? Anyway, won't go down that down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's insane. As the crane.
This is the first Harbour of Lies of Season 4. We trialed this in the last season. I think we'll keep it for a little bit. The jury may still be out, but I talked to a lot of people that listen to the podcast. They say it's cool. They play along at home. Yep. So, very quick reminder for everybody. We will give a story that I claim to be true. The other person is allowed to ask questions, and eventually they have to declare two things, either that the story is true or that it exists in the
Harbour of Lies.
So, I claim this story to be true. It's my turn to present it to Alec, Cranston.
Okay, perfect.
And, we go down some sensationalist stories. We've had monkeys stored on boats. We've had elephants buried in parking lots.
Yeah, the spy thing.
The spy. We've had the fact that the what was the technology? The solar panel, whatever it was first developed in Halifax. So this is kind of a
Christmas song. Sorry,
the Christmas song, yes, which we learned. That's a year old now. That one.
Yeah.
This is a very low key story. So I'm going to read you the story. I claim the story to be true. When Queen Elizabeth II visited Halifax in 1982 during her Canadian tour following the patriation of the Constitution, there was a small change made to her schedule that almost nobody heard about. Now she was meant to make a brief waterfront stop in Halifax. Nothing dramatic. There was going to be a slow pass, a pause, a wave. But what mattered is who was waiting there. So waiting for her would have been a small group of local school children and youth choir members who'd been selected to attend the specific stop. I think this is great. They'd rehearsed for weeks, songs, positioning, timing. Parents had taken time off work. Teachers had rearranged schedules. And for some of the kids, this was probably the most official thing that they'd ever done. Now, this is very, very true. So my father was part of the Royal Protection when he was a police officer, when he was a serving police officer in the UK. And like he said, the Queen goes anywhere. The rehearsals are wild. Like they lock buildings down days before. They have so many stand-ins rehearsing for stuff. It's a big deal.
Okay.
Anyway, earlier that day, during a motorcade rehearsal along the waterfront, something happened. Several officers and staff noticed a low, steady vibration coming from the harbour side. Not a noise exactly, more like a pressure, a humming you would feel in your ears and chest rather than hear. Now, it was uncomfortable enough, and many people commented on it. Now, at first, everybody thought it was industrial. It was a ship. It was some construction equipment, maybe a generator out of sight. So, the Royal Protection team had them check it out. And Harbour officials confirmed there were no vessels under power. There was no unusual machinery operating. There was nothing obvious that could explain it. And even stranger still, when the convoy, the Royal Protection convoy that we're rehearsing, moved inland, the sensation disappeared. And when they returned to the waterfront, it came back. So you're following what's happening here?
Sort of.
Yeah, so the Queen's due to come to Halifax. There's a group of school children who've written and rehearsed a dance and a song waiting for her. But when the Royal Protection are doing their sort of recce's beforehand, they're noticing this noise down at the waterfront. It's like a pressure in their head. Okay. When they move inland in the city, it goes, and when it's there, they come back. Now, this is interesting. It was, these things aren't dangerous. They're nothing to panic over, but, and this is very, very true, Royal Protection officers are not in the business of shrugging unexplained physical effects, even benign ones. So the call was made quietly. Remove the waterfront stop. So all these people were there waiting. Everything was rehearsed. They removed the waterfront stop. And this is something that they do in the royal family. If they can't explain something, if something looks dangerous, they just cut it out of the tour. So no announcement was made, no explanation beyond a routing adjustment. The Queen was still going to pass through Halifax, but she wasn't going to make that stop. Now, the children waiting by the harbour weren't told much. Some waited anyway. Others were loaded back into buses. A few parents assumed that the Queen would still come around the corner, but she didn't. Later that evening, some of the kids reportedly saw her on the news and realized they'd rehearsed for a moment that just never happened. Teachers did their best to spin it. They told the kids they were still a part of history. Life went on. Now, internally, the incident was later attributed to low-frequency tidal resonance, a strong harbour flow interacting with steel hulls, submerged pillings, and waterfront infrastructure producing infrasound. Have you ever heard that down on the waterfront? That like noise you hear as the wind passes through everything? You'll notice it now, I've told you. These are pressure waves that are too low to hear, but capable of causing physical discomfort. They're harmless, they're temporary, but they were very poorly understood at the time. Years later, somebody involved in the planning reportedly joked that Halifax technically welcomed the Queen with a choir. She just never heard it. So, boil this story down. Queen comes to Halifax. She's making a waterfront stop. There's kids there that were going to perform a song and a dance. They'd rehearsed forever. But just before they pulled that stop, because the Royal Protection Unit were really confused by this noise they heard down on the waterfront, they couldn't explain what it was, so they pulled that stop from the Queen. All the kids were disappointed, and then the Queen basically never made that stop. She continued from Halifax, letting all these school children down. And later they found out it was totally benign. It was just the noise of the wind passing through the ships.
I think this is a great story.
It's a very low-key story, too. It's not sensational.
Yeah, it's
but the question is it true?
There's a lot of details. Very ChatGPT-y.
So I'm actually going to give you an admission here. Okay. So that this is ChatGPT. And the reason it's ChatGPT is I can even show you. I went to ChatGPT and I asked its research tab to go and find me a true but very unbelievable story. How much do I use ChatGPT? Oh, it's because this is my phone. It hasn't updated. So I did dispatch the research tab to go and find this story. It found the story, and then I had it flesh it out. So the reason this is true is because I did actually use ChatGPT, but I used the research tab, which gave me sources and everything else.
Okay. Huh.
Yes, it is ChatGPT.
It is ChatGPT.
Yep.
I mean, I'll be honest, I've used ChatGPT for this before, and I asked it the exact same question.
Okay.
And I didn't get this story.
Sure.
So
I got lots about crimes, and I kept saying make it not crime related, and then ghosts, and I said not ghost related, and then this one came up. And I did all my background research, and then got. So
they rerouted, they changed the route, presumably with a route that was predetermined to be an alternate route, I guess.
Yeah.
If they're going to make a last-second decision like that.
All these kids were let down, and then they realized they rerouted the Queen for nothing more than wind coming through the sails of ships.
And they would have scoped this out days in advance. So they never noticed the wind in the ships prior.
Well, this is when they were scoping it out.
This is when they were scoping it out. On the day of, did they do it?
The day of, yeah. So earlier in the day.
Earlier in the day. But they must have scoped it out days before, though, no?
They would have. I don't know if the wind was not blowing in that direction.
Okay. Because if they would have felt any wind at all that day, they would have canceled it then, I would think. Okay. What year was this again?
1982.
1982. Yeah, ships.
Ships existed in 1982. Was that the mental check there? Did ships exist?
Just thinking like the number, like the quantity of ships potentially in the harbour at that time. I have my theories here that it's where I think this is going to go, but I think there's a lot of detail, a lot of unnecessary detail from ChatGPT. So that leads me in one direction. the simplicity of the story overall leads me in another direction. Where it's not a crazy thing to happen. They didn't like something, so they changed the route. I would do the same thing if I was security. Consider this my application for security.
Well, see, the Queen's Protection don't hang around and figure stuff out. If there's something along the route that just doesn't look right, they go to the contingency. They're not in the business of figuring shit out, which is why it happened.
Why didn't they move the girls to the new route if they made them?
Because they're not in the business of driving down the route and telling everyone, by the way, she's not coming this way anymore. They also, again, don't really announce alternative movements too far ahead of time. So some of them were told, but some of them waited and found out that night when the Queen never showed and they saw it on TV. The big letdown here is that they'd rehearsed all this stuff for weeks to perform for the Queen and they never got to do it.
I just can't believe the Queen didn't make it happen so they could perform for her.
She goes to a lot of stuff like this.
I have a conclusion. I have my conclusion.
Okay, so we've reached it.
Yeah.
So that whole process was to get down to this moment. Is this true or does this exist in the Harbour of Lies?
This exists in the windy Harbour of Lies.
Okay. Suspense, please. I can confirm that this story is truly existing in the Harbour of Lies. It is in the Harbour of Lies, my friend.
You really got me there. I thought, man, it is true, mother.
Total bullshit. Total bullshit.
Yes, I knew it.
I actually told ChatGPT to write a very, very convincing, low-key, untrue story.
Okay.
Did it throw you, though?
But very believable. Like, it was just like the added detail, the fact that they weren't able to like somehow get to them that we're going to change the route because everything would have been done so far in advance. They probably could have somehow told them and got just too many inconsistencies.
They couldn't pull Lizzie out of the lower deck. She was getting hammered.
There you go. She was. I don't blame her there. But yeah, no, I'm happy I got that one right. That made my day. I got it. That exists in the Harbour of Lies. Truly exists in the Harbour of Lies.
The Royal Harbour of Lies.
Royal Harbour of Lies. Now we're cooking. That was a good one, James. I'm going to get you next time. We are here in the studio today with Arad Gharagozli, the CEO and founder of Galaxia Mission Systems, a Canadian manufacturer of intelligent satellites based right here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Alec. James, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here in this snowy day.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, it
is pretty shitty out there today. So let's have a good episode.
Why do they build Halifax on a hill? I noticed that coming down today. Like we should go back 250 years, and they should have chosen a place that was flat.
I know. I almost felt walking down to the podcast.
I wish you had. That would have been hilarious.
All right. Well, we'll get going here. I guess for starters, just kind of for us and for the listeners who tune in, kind of walk us through the origin of Galaxia, how it got its start, and sort of what its initial mission is, and how it got going.
Okay. I went to Dal. I did my undergrad in electrical engineering. And again, from day one, I was fascinated by space. I was very interested in it. And I think similar to many others who are interested in that field, aerospace or anything adjacent to that, we kind of looked around and you're just like, you see that lack of industry. And so the options are you either have to go somewhere else, find a different job, or if you're staying here, you just have to basically change career. So, I mean, that was number one. But so when I was at Dal, I started Dalhousie Space Systems Lab. That was in 2017. And that was, I would say, the pivotal moment in Canada's space industry. Because before that, even at the academic levels, we just did not have that sort of research. So I started Dalhousie Space Systems Lab. We got a team together, and we built and launched Atlantic Canada's first satellite. That was Loris. It was a project that was supported by the Canadian Space Agency at the time, directed at universities. I worked with Dr. Kevin Plucknett at Dalhousie University, mechanical department engineering. Once we start working on that, you kind of get into the field, you understand the industry, what's working, what's not working. Again, it was very important for us to be able to get in that industry and see what's possible, what's not. But after we did the Loris mission and it launched, as part of that mission, one of the things I noticed with the space industry was that kind of lack of transfer of technology from what we are doing on terrestrial missions on Earth, and how the space industry is lacking that. So with that, I started Galaxia. That was in 2020. It was the day of when they started calling the to stay home orders. Oh, okay. So it was literally, I was planning to
take over the world.
I know.
From home only. From home only.
Which, yeah, it was kind of ironic. And yeah, that day I was actually planning to go meet my lawyer to actually sign the paper to do the incorporation. And she was like, yeah, apparently they're telling people to stay home. And that was the day one of Galaxia, I would say. And since then, we've been doing great stuff. But the focus of Galaxia is, again, revolutionizing how satellites operate in space. We are kind of moving away from passive sensors who are just collecting information and sending them back down to do way more with satellites. And I will talk a bit more about like what satellites are as general, because there's a lot of misconceptions about them.
Okay.
But yeah.
Let's talk about that, actually. Yeah. So let's look at the average listener of this show, who I think has way too much time on their hands to be listening to us in the first place.
Agree.
But tell us about satellites, because we all think of we think of Sputnik back in the origins of satellites, and then we see them as the things that ping our phone calls and our television everywhere. There's a lot of space junk up there too. Like, what are we missing about satellites, the average person's knowledge?
So, when you're talking about satellites, it's that almost like Cold War era. After that, where we wanted to kind of get into space, and we started building these gigantic platforms, and you get to space at any means necessary. So building massive rockets, putting up basically radioactive power spacecrafts that are still operating to this day. Some of them have been like 50, 60 years in space. They're still working, transmitting. And that's basically what comes to mind. GPS is the number one thing, which is part of the global navigation system. But there's this new wave of satellites that are coming out. We call them the spacecraft. So these are smaller satellites. They fly at a much lower altitude. They're about like 400 to 600 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. They travel at about 27,000 kilometers an hour. So you can travel from Toronto to Halifax in less than 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And these satellites can go around the Earth about 16 times a day. So just when you kind of put all of these things together, you kind of understand the gravity of these sensors. So what if you attach some sort of a data collector to these satellites that can scan the surface of the Earth on daily basis over and over and over at very high resolution, high fidelity sensors? When you put all these together, you understand how important satellites are, the space systems are. When we are talking about communication, Starlink has truly revolutionized how we do communication. When you're talking about, again, the global navigation system, GPS and things like that, without any of those, it would be very difficult to live the lives that we are living now. And we can see these new generations of satellites are coming in that will really, I would say, push that boundary even further.
Okay. I want to talk about a couple recent milestones, kind of both in 2025, but very recent. One was you recently landed a multi-million-dollar contract with the DRDC. So I kind of can you kind of elaborate on what you can say about that in terms of the process of getting that contract, maybe the bidding process, and what that means for Galaxia and for the future of the space tech?
So that contract, along with the other ones that we're working with federal government right now, are purely speak to the type of technologies that we're developing. At its core, we are looking at intelligent satellites in space. So that means the type of spacecrafts we're building are capable of not only collecting the information, but being able to analyze that information in space. And if I want to put that kind of in kind of a broad statement, it's we are truly looking for a needle in a haystack using satellites and artificial intelligence from space. So when you are looking at the surface of the Earth, there are so many things that are happening constantly. It would be almost impossible to collect that information, bring them back down to Earth, and analyze it in a timely manner. So in some applications, let's say when you need truly time-sensitive information to get relayed to you. For instance, we're talking in adversary ships in our waters, let's say, or on some of the commercial stuff, you're looking at illegal logging or wildfire detection before it actually gets out of hand. And for the next generation of these satellites, you're thinking about new level of warfighting systems, so hypersonics, ballistic missiles. How do you detect these in timely manner, relay that information to people who need to make the decision so we can make those decisions faster? So the type of satellites we are building are here to address that sort of information. We are not collecting info. We are collecting information, providing intelligence from space. yeah, so the projects that we are doing truly kind of addresses a lot of those in different domains. So either in radio frequency spectrum or in let's say hyperspectral spectrum that you can see or hear different things from space.
And you recently had this would have been 2025 as well, I believe, but a significant launch, the Mobius one, with where you had collaborated with SpaceX. Can you kind of walk through any challenges you faced with doing that and some successes that you saw? Because from what I heard, in the end, it was a great success, the launch, but I just want to hear from you kind of some challenges that you went through with that and kind of what came out the other end.
I mean, Mobius was the second satellite that we built. Again, the first one, Loris, was what I talked about is more on the university side, but Mobius was truly kind of start from scratch. It's a company that is going to build spacecraft. And that's not a simple task. Right. And be able to do that, again, in our province with the level of expertise that are around was very difficult to do because when you're thinking about, let's say, building something like that in the States, or other countries or potentially other provinces that have that sort of expertise around, we had to, again, kind of learn the hard way in a sense. And on top of that, you're cash constrained. We can see that there is a kind of a new wave in defense procurement programs and the defense policies that we have and has changed the playing field a bit. But before that, it was very difficult to find the money, find the capital, find the expertise to kind of put the system together that can output, in this case, a spacecraft at the end of it. So we hit a lot of challenges. We made a lot of mistakes, and we learned a lot from those mistakes.
For sure.
But I think the good thing that came out of it is now we are the only company in Atlantic Canada that is building satellites, and I would say across Canada, I know some non-commercial entities that build satellites attached to universities, but commercially speaking, Galaxia is, I would say, by far maybe one or the only company that manufactures nanosatellite class at a commercial scale.
And how do you, like, our podcast is hyper-local, so we try to bring conversations under the lens of Halifax or Nova Scotia if we can. How unique is the environment here? Because, if I speak to the average Nova Scotian, they probably wouldn't peg us as a major center for space technology development, and we've got the Spaceport that I believe its construction's underway right now. What's the timeline on that? Am I correct?
They're working on that. Yeah, I'm not too familiar on the timelines, but yeah, the Maritime Launch Services
right.
CANSO. Yeah.
So we have a growing industry here. How unique, or let me rephrase that. What are the strengths and the weaknesses of doing what you do here?
That is a good question. Again. When you think about it from the advantages of building a space industry in Nova Scotia, I don't think there are a lot of them, right? Again, we don't, as far as population is concerned, we can't compete with Quebec or Ontario. When it comes to, federal programs or provincial programs that can subsidize projects like this, it's not there yet. So there's a lot of disadvantages of doing that in Nova Scotia. And again, it's barriers after barriers, in my opinion, not necessarily because of anything specific. It's just because we are the first people doing it. So we are paving the way in a sense. However, my vision for it is that Nova Scotia specifically will become the center of space in Canada. We are hoping to see the maritime launch be online very soon. Our goal, our vision, and my plan for Galaxia is to become the only or one of the largest satellite manufacturers in Canada, not only supply the future defense capabilities, space capabilities for Canada, but be able to export these. We can see with the dynamics that we have with the U.S. and a lot of the geopolitical changes that are happening between Europe and States and Canada and States, space is a rapidly growing market. There is a dire need to be able to address that. Canada is in a very good position to address it. And for us specifically being Atlantic Canada, we have this very unique opportunity to capture it. We either will become the point for Canada and for Canadian space ecosystem, or we're just going to lose that. And for a province that we have a lot work to do as far as our GDP and economy is concerned to be able to push that. In my opinion, one of the ways to do that is really focus on manufacturing. We can see other countries are doing that and other regions are doing that. We really need to double down on manufacturing. Space manufacturing is one of those things that is not going to go away. It's just like that is the new future, right? So I do see Nova Scotia being that. We are here. We are very proud to be a Nova Scotian company. We don't want to go anywhere, and we want to build that ecosystem here, be able to build that massive partnerships, bringing order in, building satellites here, launching them out of Nova Scotia and being able to operate them. So you're talking about a massive industry that is about to erupt in the region.
So if we zoom out of the nitty-gritty of what you're doing, but what you will achieve and how that affects the average person, what is Galaxia going to do for the average human?
It's space. I would look at space as an infrastructure, right? It's the same way that we have roads, we have bridges, we have electrical power system. We do need space. As I just mentioned at the beginning, like there is a lot that we are using for space that, again, companies like SpaceX, that's why I'm very grateful for everything they have done, is they've really brought space to the forefront of where average people can understand the impact of it. To this day, there are places in, let's say, Cape Breton that do not have access to internet or do not have access to a 5G network, which is, for a first world country, that is concerning. And then you have this other country that comes in, or company that comes in, and it's like, here's this fascinating technology. You just plug and play, and you have a faster internet than many other people have downtown Halifax. So these are very, very early impacts of that, very visible signs of it. And the type of work we are on, again, we are kind of focusing on, again, building that sort of intelligent satellites. It might not, we don't directly deal with consumer. We deal with primarily on the defense side and the commercial aspect. But again, we are really building and paving the way for the next generation of space solutions that can make life better for people, make it easier, make it safer. Not necessarily directly with dealing with the clients, but dealing with the with nations in a sense, to being able to enable them to get to space and build technologies. Like one of the markets that we're currently after are the MENA market, Middle East, Northern Africa. Africa is an emerging market. They just started the Africa Space Agency, and every single country is trying to get into space from Africa. The capabilities is not mostly there, but again, we are there to address those. We are going to be in Africa, talking to them in April, in fact, and be able to bring some of those projects to Nova Scotia and build satellites for African nations that are trying to get to space. And we're here as a Canadian company to support that initiative.
I love it.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my next question. It's a bit philosophical, nothing too crazy, but
Love it.
If you could fast forward, say, 20 years or so, or a decade, 20 years, what would be something you would hope people would say about the impact that Galaxia has had on the space industry in general, whether it be locally in Atlantic Canada or on a global scale? Like, what would you hope someone brings up Galaxia? What are they saying that you're hoping they say?
One of the technologies that we are focusing on is we call it orbital cloud infrastructure. So as it's at its core, beyond whatever we talked about, these early projects for defense and commercial we're talking about, is this idea that exactly how Amazon Web Services is operating, Google is operating, we can deploy our satellite into space and allow people to launch their mission onboard our satellite. So we are kind of relieving them from having to put in the CapEx to launch their own space capabilities. We give them that infrastructure as a service. Which
So they're not building the hardware, correct?
They're not building the hardware. So it's our satellite, their mission. We have some clients we're working on right now, and they're addressing things in energy sector, monitoring pipelines, monitoring energy lines. Again, I talked about wildfire detection. These are some of the things do not exist right now. So your average person does not have access to space the same way that they have access to cloud. So that's why you have things like Uber, you've got things like these new apps that makes our life so much easier is all thanks to cloud services. Because you can be a single person with a laptop and a great idea, and you can launch your e-commerce company solving a problem. We don't have that in space. There are a lot of great ideas and big problems that can be solved from space, but you need $50 million to start fixing those. And that is a very hard thing to do. Our solution, what I'm hoping to do, my vision is that in 20 years, we have our, this mirror of cloud infrastructure in a space that we are enabling thousands of people with a great idea and a laptop to have a mission in a space that is fixing a big problem on Earth. And we are the only company working on that sort of platform to this day. We have attracted a lot of attention globally on that because it is truly going to be life-changing the moment that we can actually open that and level the playing field for anyone to be able to address big problems on Earth using satellites.
And is that still, we don't have to get into numbers, is that still for them in terms of investment, still a fairly big number to be able to access this thing you'll build? Or are we going to be, to me, lowering this barrier to entry is fascinating. Will there be a day when 15-year-old Johnny in his bedroom can have an idea and use some of his own allowance money to go and try something up in space? Is this the goal?
That is the idea.
Wow.
Yeah. Like one of the promotional things we have is like you get a $99 per orbit deal. You just sign up, you get one orbit for your app to be launched into space. Oh, but the reason is like we've been talking to a lot of researchers and people who understand problem solving and they're like, yeah, I don't have the money, but yeah, if you basically, ideally speaking, like around like a $40,000, $50,000 a year, you can have access to this portion of the spacecraft to fix the problem. So it's going to be significantly cheaper to launch a mission into space rapidly.
You've got all of these ideas, but money is the barrier to entry. So I think what you're saying is when you pull that bottleneck away, the ideas have so much more of an opportunity to be put in and trialed and tested and implemented. Yeah. Wow. I'm excited about this.
Absolutely.
We can have a matter of facts experiment.
This is the whole point of the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm loving this episode.
You can launch your podcast into the satellite, for example. Like, I don't know. Like you do that. I'll give you guys a free pass.
There we go.
We can hold you to that. We appreciate it.
Oh,
we appreciate
100%.
it.
I have one last, because we're close on time, I have one last question to ask you. If you were to go back to the day you founded Galaxia, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself then that you know now? One piece of advice.
I guess from the piece of advice. I don't ever regret the decisions I've made. Like every decision I've made to bring me to this point, I will stand 100% behind it. However, it was going to be fucking hard. So if it's like from an entrepreneur to entrepreneur, we all know that. You always hear that. Like 99% of the businesses fail. It's absolutely goddamn true. Yeah. And that's when I look back, and that's why I'm very proud of my team. I'm very proud of what we have done. It's not only difficult to build a company, it's 10 times harder to build a space company. Right. In Atlantic Canada. Right. So just stick with it. It's going to be a hard road, and it's all going to be good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate your time. That was a wicked episode. Wow, what a great episode. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Episode 1 of Season 4. We had a great guest, a couple great Insane as the Crane topic, Harbour of Lies, had a lot of fun, got some victory with that one. But
don't gloat.
Oh, come on. But thank you again. You can follow us on Instagram at Matter of Facts Podcast. You could email us at halifaxpodcast@gmail.com.
I'm sorry if you've emailed us in the last 18 months. I have not checked that
Probably
Gmail
just your
account.
brother, my uncle, anyway, so it's all good. But check us out on socials. Check us out on LinkedIn with our Cushman & Wakefield Atlantic account. You'll see our all of our content on there. On YouTube, I believe, as well. New trailer dropping.
OnlyFans.
New trailer dropping.
OnlyFans.
We're going to make a lot of money. No, but thank you for tuning in. James, anything you want to add before we send it off?
I think you've said it all.
I said it all. You guys hear that? Thank you so much. We'll see you next episode, episode 2. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Matter of Facts podcast.
But you can get more of us. You can subscribe on any good podcast provider. You can follow us on Instagram at Matter of Facts Podcast. And for all that great feedback and abuse, you can send it by email to halifaxpodcast@gmail.com.
And of course, you can always find James Collins and I on the internet.
Please do get in touch, and we look forward to seeing you next time.